The Saudi man arrested on Tuesday at the Paris airport over suspected links to the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi has been released. This after officials concluded it was a case of mistaken identity. French law enforcement sources on Tuesday named the man as Khalid Al-Toibi, the same name as a former member of the Saudi Royal Guard listed in US and British sanctions documents and a United Nations commissioned report as having been involved in Khashoggi's killing in Turkey. Paris prosecutors said checks had shown that a warrant issued by Turkey, which had triggered the arrest when the man's passport was scanned during border checks, did not apply to the man arrested at the airport. According to a statement from the prosecutor's office, quote, it says, extensive checks on the identity of this person showed that the warrant did not apply to him, so he was released. Now let's talk this through by speaking with security expert Catch Anonuju, who is joining me live from Abuja. Thank you so much for joining us. What was your initial reaction to the latest updates on the suspects arrested in connection to the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, but later freed because they said it was a mistaken identity?
Thank you very much. We will say it is whatever it is, whatever brought about that decision, the US have gone forth to show that even if that were to be the case, that it is going on to insist that a free press is very, very important for democracy. And so you have had that passage of a legislation in DC by council members insisting that the place opposite the Saudi embassy will now be known as Jamal Khashoggi Way. So that designation, like a decree, like a law, has now been voted upon unanimously on Tuesday. And that, for me, to serve as a reminder about the danger that journalists go through. And that also tells you that that district is sending a message to the world that even if in Turkey that there's been this development, the US will put more focus in issues regarding freedom for journalists across the world. So that, for me, sends a very, very strong message coming on the heels of this development you talked about, in which this person who was held and said to have been who was held, but suddenly now we're hearing the authorities that it's been a mistaken identity. So whatever it is, the position of the United States sustains the heat on maltreatment of journalists across the world.
Do you see the arrest of this man, Khalid Al-Toibi, so his name was called, as some kind of deflection from the real crime or anything fishy somewhat?
Well, you have to see the Turkey-Saudi Arabian game in terms of rapprochement. When it fits them, they will make deals. When it doesn't fit them, they will insist on the rule of law being followed through. So we would not know properly until we start to analyze what actually is behind the recent clash of actions in Istanbul.
News of the arrest of such a high-profile suspect had brought some relief, a form of relief to his wife, that justice was kind of nigh. But this looks like dashing her hopes, especially after the Saudi court overturned 5 death sentences for those suspected to be involved in her husband's killing. Do you think so?
Well, that exactly is what I was trying to say in the first place. It will break hearts, but then for Saudi and Turkey's politics, they probably think it's time to let go. But I don't think they will change the way the US suddenly feel about the freedoms for journalists being tied to the fundamental issues about democracy. And for me, and also it was restated this afternoon by President Biden, and I believe we should look at it that seriously. So no matter what states do, as some sort of deal that breaks the heart of those who were earlier happy for their arrest, the US will not give up on protecting democracy across the world by making sure that journalists are free to practice their trade without in its way.
Well, it's that same question I want to be asking you because, getting your reaction to an earlier story, I took quoting a report which says a record of 293 reporters were in jail as of December 1st, and at least 24 journalists were killed because of their coverage, and 18 others died in circumstances that make it too difficult to determine whether they were targeted because of their work. What impression did these give you?
It tells you there is still a lot of threat to free speech across the world. It tells you that there are still fundamental problems about society and society's ability to also be a little bit tolerant of interrogations, criticisms, and opposition. Those who cover the news across the world sometimes come into grave danger because authoritarian regimes are not very happy, even including the United States. As the U.S. explained, as President Biden just spoke a few moments ago, there are behaviors of the last administration that seem to have not only targeted those who report the truth, just like you saw President President Trump's White House against certain news organizations across the United States. So those threats are there, and we should never take our eyes off it. With close to 300 journalists held around the world, that is massive. And I believe we should not take our eyes off the ball. We should continue to put the kind of pressure like you have also in Nigeria and elsewhere where people are demanding for more freedoms. We should not take our eyes off the ball. States like the United States also do admit there are threats to free speech. There are threats to democracy. So, and now we're talking about over 290 parents being locked up, being harassed, being undermined, and having their freedoms hindered because of their embrace of their work.
Yeah,
I think we should never take away
we're actually due to
eyes from the ball.
We're actually due to bring this interview to an end, but I quickly want to get your opinion as regards, because let's try to bring it home. Sometimes when you have journalists on the road to cover issues that are happening, they want to cover breaking news. Even the people on the street, the people around that locality would always do not allow the journalists to perform their duties. Is this a function of the government alone, or the people who are supposed to also protect their own brothers, those who are bringing to them the social responsibility, through their duties?
It's a function of the case in society. But don't also forget that in most areas, it is a reaction to the way the state, in its own nations, states, countries, allow for freedom of being different. Some people do not exhibit tolerance in a way that makes news gathering a very, very easy issue. And that's why I think being a fundamental issue about society, freedom in societies, and freedoms in democracy, we must continue to make sure that we even see it as a proactive human rights situation. The freedom of the press is a fundamental issue about every society in regards to human rights, in regards to the rule of law, because with that, people are having free access to information. People would not be able to make proper judgments. When governments try to undermine the availability of the truth in the hands of the people, they try to put pressure on the broadcast stations, try to make sure that certain individuals who speak what they do not want are removed from television cameras and from the newsrooms because they are very afraid of dealing with the truth. And when you see people afraid of dealing with the truth, it has to do a lot with the way society has gone, just like we are complaining about challenges in Nigeria. And then you see the overtly use of the broadcasting organizations and agencies like the NBC to put unnecessary pressure across the world in countries where they exhibit, where they operate, all members of the press, trying
Okay.
to inhibit free
Right.
or detailed discussion of everyday issues across the world.
All right, Mr. Cash Nonuju, security expert, thank you so much for our insight, even at that very short notice. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.